Welcome back to another video. So today I am back to talk about something actually different. So today I'm going to be reviewing the new Kagurabachi manga that just dropped on Shonen Jump, and it's created by Takeru Hokozonu. And basically it's a brand new shonen manga that people have been talking about on Twitter for the last week or so, and everyone's been talking about it, seeing some of the leaks, but the official chapter came out today. And I wanted to talk about Reddit, and I just wanted to give my thoughts on it, seeing if it actually lives up to the hype. I'm not one of those people that are like, oh my god, this has to be the greatest thing ever, or it's going to be the worst thing ever, because that's similarities with other manga that we're going to talk about later. But I just wanted to give it a chance, and if y'all mess with it, keep on doing reviews whenever it drops, because it is a brand new series, and I love getting into brand new series because it's easier to keep up with than catching up with 100, 200 chapters of a manga. But let's get into the chapter, and then we're going to talk more and more about details that I like and dislike about this manga so far for the first chapter. So the chapter actually starts off with us seeing a swordsmith, and we actually see the main character Chihiro watching his father make a sword. Like, he's actually known as the greatest swordsmith in the land, and his name is Kunishiga Rukuhira. His name is kind of really hard to pronounce. Chihiro's dad is basically known as like the greatest swordsmith in history, and actually we're gonna learn more details about him in a little bit that we're gonna go on. But basically it's just Chihiro and his dad making like swords, and then we actually cut away to like a funny moment where it's basically like Chihiro and his dad basically bonding over how his dad bought fish, and how his dad has basically like a big hobby for like goldfish and just random fish that he'd be buying at stores. And they have like a little small like banter, basically just the story setting the ground rules for how their relationship is. And after that, we actually cut back to them like still making swords, and we actually see someone that's actually a close friend of Chihiro's father named Shiba. And Mr. Shiba's basically like talking to Chihiro, talking about like, oh, you got bigger, and oh, you still working with your dad trying to be a swordsman. And then he goes on basically like this little rant where he's like, oh, did you know your dad was like a great teacher, like he was that guy? And Chihiro's dad tries to like stop it, like tell him to like don't tell anymore, like you don't need to know about all that, you always tell him that. And then Shiba goes along anyway and said, your dad 15 years ago in the Sentai War was more famous than guys like me who actually fought at the battlefield. And basically saying that like his dad was one of the key reasons for why the Sentai War ended. And it's not because he was like a fighter like Madara or something like that and fought on the battlefield. It's because the swords he made were so powerful and strong that they were able to end the war. He's telling Chihiro like, your dad saved a lot of people, he's a hero, like you gotta live up to that. And it was kind of messed up what Shiba was doing, because Shiba was definitely putting that pressure on Chihiro to follow in his father's footsteps, even though he already wanted to. But like, he's one of those guys that's just like constantly reiterating to Chihiro like, oh, your dad was this. And it was definitely like, I didn't like that moment. I'm gonna talk about it more at the end, but I was like, this already put a bad light for me for my feelings on Shiba. And so Chihiro and his dad actually start talking more about how Chihiro wants to be a swordsmith, and telling his dad like, yo, I want to follow in your footsteps, like I'm serious, I'm not just doing this because some people are telling me to, I actually really want to. And his dad actually decides to show him a katana that he made before Chihiro was born, and basically telling Chihiro like, yo, katanas are used in war, katanas always save lives and they slash open new eras, but remember, this is a tool that's made for killing people. And he says that we are complicit in the deaths of many people, like even though we're not personally like killing people with our hands, we are responsible for a lot of lives, and that is a lot of guilt that can be on a swordsmith's hands. And are you ready to like do that? And I like it because Chihiro was like, I'm not ready for it right now, but I know that one day I'm going to be, and I'm going to keep on working to be at that level. That was really nice. And his dad was like, okay, I'm just glad to know that. Like, I'm glad to know that like my son, it might be able to carry that burden. And then we actually cut away to 38 months later, and we actually see a group of people getting cut, like basically like killed and stuff like that. And we see one of these guys basically like yelling at them, saying like, oh, y'all just a bunch of like thugs and maggots. And then the guy's like punching him. It was like this big mustache guy, he's like punching him and stuff like that. He's like, do you know who's backing us? Like, do you know who's our leader? And this is where it gets interesting. This is where I was like kind of hooked on the series. So the guy that's getting beat up, it says like, oh, you're the people backing you up as a sorcerer, right? There's sorcerers around, and they're all like scared, they don't ever do stuff on their own, they always got to get lackeys. And then we see this guy with like this hat, and he's like, oh, how fascinating, like basically like congratulating the guy for talking that mess. And then we see like, I guess like trees or something like that, trees grow out the ground and stuff like that, and they actually like start going across the guy that's basically like yelling at them and calling them like basically pussies and shit like that. And you see like, I think it's like a blood tree. It's kind of red, so I don't know if it's like actually supposed to be a different tree, but it kind of looks like a blood tree. Like it was starting to go into the guy's skin, so I was thinking like, oh, it's probably like absorbing some of his blood or something. And then we get a look of the sorcerer, and the sorcerer is like this guy with a top hat. He has like a long braid, and then he's wearing a suit, and he also like one of his eyes is black. And I think this is going to be probably one of the first sorcerers we meet in this series, but that's one thing that's already making me excited, that this series isn't just people with katanas. It's actually going to have like sorcerers and people with powers, and we're going to see more at the end of the chapter. But that already kind of wrapped me into this manga so far. And so we see the sorcerer actually start like talking to the lackeys, the Yakuza people, being like, oh, y'all need to start punishing the people that revolt against y'all harsher. Like, there's no reason why people should be going around talking this mess. And then we actually see him like do a hand sign, and he actually like vanishes out of the air. Like, he just teleports away. And then we cut to Chihiro actually, and we see him after the time skip, and we see that it's him on a train with Shiba. He has a big scar on his face, and they're just talking before they get to the place where the Yakuza people are at. And they're basically saying like, hey, Chihiro, can I ask you a question? Like, that scar on your face, you can get it removed, right? Like, it really stands out. Why don't you do something about it? And then Chihiro says, like, it's kind of corny, but it's kind of funny to me. He says, every morning when I wash my face and look in the mirror, I see this scar, and I remember that day. So every day I start the morning with fresh hatred. That shit was so corny. I ain't gonna lie. It's kind of hard, I guess, but it was kind of corny because, like, bro, like, he hasn't really done anything yet. So, like, I can't feel, I haven't seen anything yet. So I can't really, like, feel the words he's saying. It was just kind of funny. He was just like, I wake up every morning with fresh hatred. It's not like a hater on Twitter. That's what it felt like when I read that. And it was kind of funny, but we learned a few things from this. So one, we learned that Chihiro's father is dead. Somehow, some way has died in the 3 years that we skipped past the last thing we saw. And also Chihiro has like this scar on his face. And so this is another thing that draws a lot of Demon Slayer comparisons, is that one, Tanjiro lost his family besides his sister Nezuko. Everyone in his family died from a demon. And so far Chihiro, we've seen that something, most likely a sorcerer, killed his father and basically left him with this scar. And so now he's basically on a journey of revenge. But it's different from Tanjiro, because Tanjiro was on a journey for revenge, but Tanjiro was definitely a lot nicer and learned more about how demons work and was definitely more sympathetic towards demons. But he did kill everyone. While Chihiro seems like he don't care about any of that, he's just killing everybody. And so they get to the town where basically this Yakuza group was at, where we saw early in the chapter, and we actually see like live, not a live hanging, but all the people that were revolting against the Yakuza got hanged to show the people in the town like, yo, if you don't follow the Yakuza's orders, you're gonna be like this. And so as soon as Chihiro sees this, he's just mad as hell. He's like, yeah, I gotta go kill everybody there. And so him and Shiba pull up at the Yakuza like hideout, and Chihiro actually has this cool moment because these guys are like basically like talking mess, and then Chihiro throws his sword at one of the guys, and it basically like goes to like the side of him. Like, it doesn't like kill the dude, it's just right next to his face, but him throwing it actually hit the guy that one of the Yakuza members was talking to, and so he falls down, right? And then Shiba's like, okay, I'll take care of these guys to the left, and you just see him slowly behind the person like that died from Chihiro's sword, and I thought that was just so cool. And then we just see Chihiro jump on the table that they were on, grab the sword by the guy's face, and then cut all of their necks in like one swoop, like one slash. I thought that was actually like really cool, right? And so the guy that was getting beat up by the Yakuza member, they're about to tell him like, yo, we found out you have a sister at home, we finna go and murder that girl. And as soon as they're about to leave to go murder that girl, like Chihiro pops up, and there's like a really nice panel. I really love the way that his trench coat is like drawn. I love the shading on it. It looks really, really nice. And so Chihiro starts slashing everybody, and basically he murders everybody. I haven't seen an MC do this in a minute, where they just killing everybody. Like, there's no way these guys are alive. He's like chopping arms off, he's chopping necks. Like, everyone here is actually dying for real. And Shiba's just sitting there watching, and Shiba starts talking that shit. He's like, oh, that kid, he's the son of Kushigi Rukuhiro. And he's like, you heard of him, right? The master swordsmith, famous for his special technique nobody else can do. And then Chihiro's like talking that mess like, yo, I can't allow slime like you to wield a katana. And they all start to try to jump him. And so he draws his sword, and then Shiba says, like, basically Chihiro's dad imbued his katana with sorcery. The katana he made were enchanted blades with special powers. And then as soon as like he says that, Chihiro says N10, and then basically his sword imitates like kind of like water, like Demon Slayer, and actually shows the fish that were in the beginning of the story that his dad bought, like the black fish and then the colorful fish. And they come out, hits them with the fish. At first I was like, does he hit him with the fish? But then you see like the next panel, I think it's like a water slash when he does it, because it looks like he slashes like basically everyone in half, and then it looks like you see like water effects. So I think he slashes all of them like in half. The katana that boy wields was Kushigi's last katana, the one he gave his life to make. we know a lot of things from this. Chihiro's dad passed away, and before he passed away, he made like this last katana and he gave it to his son, and that's what Chihiro has now. We don't know the context. For my guesses, I'm assuming that it was probably a sorcerer that killed Chihiro's dad, messed him up, and gave him that scar. So the chapter ends with basically Chihiro like killing everybody. It's a bloodbath. He murdered everybody, right? Chihiro leaves the like Yakuza boss there, and he's like, tell us what you know about the Hisaku. The guy's like, the Hisaku, what are you talking about? And then Chihiro's like, the group of sorcerers backing you. If you want to play dumb, like, that's cool. I'm sure your men are already waiting for you in hell. And then the Yakuza boss is like, those Hisaku, those sorcerers, they're monsters. Like, if you want to pick monsters with them, you got to be insane. And then Chihiro's like, do I look sane to you? Like, I don't care if they're monsters. I have to cut them down. Well, that's basically the first chapter. And there's some things that we definitely got to talk about. So the first thing I want to do, I went into details. I already said it multiple times in the video, is definitely the Demon Slayer comparisons. A lot of people have been knocking down this manga because of the comparisons to Demon Slayer. Because one, we have an MC whose family is killed by a group of people like a sorcerer or a demon, and they use katanas using swords, but also so far their swords also have the power to like use different like techniques, and it just happens to also be looking like a water technique, which Tanjiro also did at the beginning of the story. So it's just like a lot of comparisons so far. So there's a lot of comparisons already to Demon Slayer that people are knocking down this manga for. But me personally, I'm not a big person that likes to knock down shows or manga for having similarities to other manga. Like, sometimes that stuff just happens, and sometimes the person is inspired. Like, you could definitely tell that this manga is definitely inspired by Demon Slayer, but it already looks like it's going to be a different series, because one, we have sorcerers, and I think that sorcerers give you a lot more of unique stuff that you can do compared to like demons. Because so far with the sorcerers, we already seen a guy that can teleport and that can also use like, I guess, like basically like tree branches and stuff like that, or use like plants. So I think that this manga definitely has like more space to be more unique compared to like other manga or Demon Slayer right now in terms of like their villains, because their villains are not going to be demons, they're going to be sorcerers, and there's no like limit so far to what sorcerers can do. They can do anything, like fire, like trees, grass, maybe even time. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you can do with that, so I'm not going to knock it for that, and I think that there's a lot of things that this manga can do. And plus, right now, we don't know what exactly happened 3 years ago, so the story's already letting us off with a mystery on what exactly happened 3 years ago and who's the one that basically killed Chihiro's father. And another thing I want to talk about is that I want to know, was all of Chihiro's dad's swords like this? Because Shiba says Kushigi imbued his katana with sorcery. The katana he made were enchanted blades with special powers. So what I want to know was that back during the Sentai War, was every single sword, like every single katana that Chihiro's dad made, like had powers like this, and that's why they won the war, because of how like powerful these swords were, because they had like sorcery and powers. So I want to know, like, it was that every sword, or was that just Chihiro's sword, that he's the only one that has a sword like this, or maybe the other swords that his dad made weren't as powerful as this sword. Like, instead of it being like him being able to do like special techniques and water techniques or whatever, it's more like they were just stronger katanas that had like slight more durability and slight more power. That's what I want to know. Those are the basically the questions I have right now. Is right now, what happened to his dad? Who killed his dad? What are the sorcerers? Is there more sorcerers? And also, what abilities does Chihiro's like katana have? And so that's how I feel about Kagurabachi right now. Chapter 1, like I said, there's some things I want to like, I like so far that I'm actually interested in. Like I said, the backstory, the swords, the sorcerers, those are stuff that's actually hooking me, and I don't mind the similarities so far to other manga like Demon Slayer. I don't mind that, and you can just tell that this person's definitely influenced by Demon Slayer, and I don't think that's a bad thing, especially because there's a lot of things in this manga so far that is gonna like spread itself out from Demon Slayer that's gonna be way more unique to it. And I think it was a good chapter. Definitely good chapter, definitely great art. I definitely love the art, and I think Chihiro's like a decent character so far, I guess. I definitely want to know more about him. I'm definitely more interested in the world and the backstory more than like him right now. Like, I definitely want to know what happened to his father and who killed his father and sorcerers. I'm not really interested in Chihiro right now. He's kind of not blowing me away, but there's still chance. It's the first chapter, so maybe next chapter we'll learn more about him, but he's not the reason I'm hooked on it. The reason I'm hooked on it so far is because of the world and the enemies. But that's everything I want to say for this video. Thank you guys for watching the video. Leave a like, subscribe to see more content there, and hit that bell up and post it consistently. And let me know what you think about the new chapter. Do you think that this can be the next big shonen hit, or are you interested at all, or do you think that you're not interested at all because it has so many similarities to Demon Slayer and it's just not captivating right now? Let me know what you think down below. And if you want me to keep on talking about Kagurabachi every week when it drops chapters, I'll definitely do that. Just let me know down below. And I'm gonna see you guys next time. Peace.